Hello everyone, and welcome once again to English Lessons Online with me, Professor Geoffrey. Now today I thought we'd take a look at some verb tenses. I've been asked recently about the present perfect tenses and perfect tenses in general. And I thought this would be a good opportunity for those of you who are not sure quite when to use the present perfect tense, and indeed when to use other tenses. So let's start by having a verb tense overview and looking at when some of these tenses are used. And what better way than to start first of all with the present simple tense. The present simple tense, when is it used? It's used for things that are usually conducted on a daily basis or are habitual, are generally true, are statements of facts. For instance, we can have statements like, the earth revolves around the sun. This is an undeniable fact and it's a true statement. So we can use the simple present tense for that. We can also use it for what we call the present simple timetable. When we're talking about schedules and timetables, we can use things like the plane for New York takes off or departs at 7 o'clock. It arrives at. When you're looking at a bus timetable, when you're either at a bus station or standing in a bus station, the bus timetable is usually in the simple present tense, being used in the simple present timetable. So it's actually telling you bus C7 arrives, it departs. Okay, so that's the simple present tense, and we've got a couple of examples here. I drive to work every day. Now remember, in the simple present tense and the simple present tense only, the third person singular, he, she, or it, takes an S or ES on the base form of the verb. So when we have I drive to work every day, we can have a statement where she, third person singular, rarely drives to work. So it wouldn't be correct to say she rarely drives to work. We need to add the S. She drives. He drives, she drives, it drives. Because my dog drives me crazy sometimes. So here we are, and this is the time frame. It can be fact, general truth, or habit. Verb form, as I've already said, drive or drives, the base form of the verb, plus S for the third person singular. Now, there are clues that tell you when to use these tenses, or indeed when these tenses are being used. And these clues, or I like to call them trigger words, help you determine, is that sentence in the simple present, is it in the simple past, or whatever. Look at the clues in this. We have adverbs of frequency, always. I always drive to work. I usually drive to work. I sometimes drive to work. I never drive to work. This list is not exhaustive. There are many, many adverbs of frequency that you can use in the simple present tense. So let's look at the simple past tense and when do we use it? Well, it's for a completed action at a specific time in the past. So when we look at it, simple past, I drove to work last week. Now remember, the S is only added to the third person singular in the simple present tense. So in the past tense, it remains the same for all of the persons. I, you, he, she, it, we, you, and they all drove. I drove to work last week. She drove to work every day when she lived in Atlanta. The time frame for using them: completed action at a specific time in the past, or it's a past fact, truth, or habit. So similar to the simple present, but it's a past fact, yeah? And the past tense verb of the form is drove, yeah? If drive was a regular verb, say for instance like walk, we would add ed to the past tense and it would be walked. Those are regular verbs, but irregular verbs can have a past tense that is different from the simple present tense, and indeed it can have a past participle that is different from the past and the simple present tense. We'll see that in a moment when we come to the perfect tenses, or the past participle tense, as some people like to call it. So the trigger words or clues for the simple past: adverbs of frequency: last year, last month, last May, yesterday, the day before yesterday, 2 days ago. All of these are trigger words that help to tell you that that is in the simple past, okay? Now the future, the simple future tense, these are used for future actions. They can be fact, truth, or habit, once again. And we have two options for using verbs in this tense. One is using the auxiliary verb will, which is for a prediction or a willingness, as you can see here. Or we can use be going to for a prediction or a prior plan. So it's something that you've planned to do and you are going to do it in the future. So look, I will drive to work tomorrow. I am going to drive to work tomorrow if it doesn't snow. So here we're using it in a conditional form, right? That you are going to drive to work, but only if it doesn't snow. Otherwise, you'll have to make, if it snows, you will have to make other arrangements. So this is what you've planned to do. You're planning to drive to work only if it doesn't snow. So the verb takes this form, will, and the base form of the verb, will drive. Is, am, are, going, okay? So we're using the verb to be plus going to drive. Yeah, is, am, are, plus going to, and the base form of the verb. And the trigger words, or indeed the clues, are given here. Tomorrow, next day, next week, next year, next month, in the future. Yeah, these are all trigger words that you can use with the simple future tense. Okay, so now let's look at continuous tenses. Now, our friends across the water in America like to call this the progressive tense, but as this is British English, then we will use continuous tense. And you can see here that continuous tense is the present continuous tense. I am driving to work. Right now, at this moment, I am driving to work. She is driving to work. There is no difference for third person singular, even though it is a present tense, but it's a present continuous tense. So the action, the time is, the action is in progress now, at this moment in time. And we use here the verb to be, is, am, are driving. Is, am, are plus the ing form of the verb. Now we call this, when we add ing to the base form of a verb, we call this the gerund form of the verb. And the clues are right now, at the moment, at this moment. Yeah, my Brazilian students here say neste momento. Yeah, at the moment, at this moment. Then there is the past continuous tense. I was driving to work when I saw the accident. So it's a past action in progress when another action occurred. Okay, so it was something that you were doing in the past, and then another action occurred. So let's just think about this. I was watching television when you called me on the phone. So I was watching the TV up until the moment you called me on the phone. I probably continued watching the TV after the phone call finished. Okay, but it was an action that was interrupted by you calling me on the phone. So it's an action in progress now. And clues are, it's an action that was in progress until another action occurred. Okay, so was, were, driving, was, were, ing, plus the ing form of the verb. And the trigger words are when, plus the simple past, yeah? And it's giving you, saying here, see the example in the first column, I was driving to work when I saw the accident, and also bear in mind the example I gave you, I was watching TV when you called, okay? Future continuous, okay? So it's an action in progress in the future. I will be driving to work when your flight arrives. I am going to be driving to work, okay? So it's an action that's going to be in progress when another action occurs in the future, as in this first sentence. Will be driving plus the gerund, ing form of the verb. Again, the verb to be is am, are, going to, and be driving. I will be going to, and the base form of the verb. Trigger words or clues are when plus the simple present. See example in the first column. So I will be driving to work when your flight arrives. Yes, and why do we put the S on the verb? Because this statement is in the simple present. When your flight arrives, I will be driving to work. You can actually say it that way if you want. It's interchangeable. It can come at the beginning or at the end of the sentence. So I will be driving to work when your flight arrives, or you could say when your flight arrives, I will be driving to work, okay? So that's the future continuous. And then we come on to the perfect tenses, and these can be a little confusing to students when they first come across them. I tend not to teach this until the end of the elementary classes in my school. You need to start reaching the upper elementary, going towards intermediate to fully understand these tenses. So let's have a look, first of all, at the timeline. It's an action completed at an unspecified time in the past. An action that begins in the past and continues now. So I have driven to work every day this week. I have driven, okay? The way we form the present perfect tense is with the verb have or has. Remember, because it's a perfect tense, okay, and it's a present, we need to use has with he, she, or it, okay? So we can see in the sentence here, she has never driven to work, okay? And some of the clues, so far, for, since, ever, never, yet, already, and still, yeah? So, I have driven to work every day this week. I have worked at this company since 2011. I have worked at this company for 20 years. Now, one thing you can gather from this is that it's an action that started in the past, but it's at an unspecified time, and it may well be continuing up until that moment you mention it, and may continue into the future. So for instance, I have worked at this company for 20 years, and I'm still working at this company, and I will still be working at the company tomorrow. Okay, so we use the simple present tense, and these are the clue words. Okay, the form is have, has, plus the past participle of the verb. And this is why it's very important. In the earlier lessons where I did irregular verbs, I stressed it's very important to learn the past participles of verbs, because you will need it when you come to the perfect tenses. Some of them are easy. If it's a regular verb, we just add ed to the past tense and the past participle. So walk, walked, walked. But when you come to irregular verbs, and bear in mind 70% of all verbs are irregular, we have this problem where we might have a verb like fly. And I have some of my Brazilian students say, I flied to Paris. Yeah, no. Fly, flew, flown. So the past tense of fly is flew, and the past participle is flown. I have flown to Paris many times. So it's an action that has occurred in the past. I'm not specifying a time. It's sufficient that you know I have flown to Paris many times, okay? And I use the present perfect tense for that. So when we come to the past perfect tense, we use had plus the past participle, okay? So I have flown to Paris many times becomes I had flown to Paris many times. Look, I had already driven to work by the time he called. So you can imagine somebody calls you thinking you're still at home to say, oh, can you remember to bring such and such? But you're already at work, yeah? And this sentence fits it perfectly. I had already driven to work by the time he called. Driven, past participle of drive. Drive, drove, driven. Okay, it's one of those where the present, past, and past participle are all different. She had driven to work before she heard the news. So it's an action that was completed before. And so now the future perfect tense, we'll look at the timeline. It's an action that will be completed before another time or event in the future. So we use will have and the past participle. So let's look at this sentence. By the time you arrive home, I will have driven to work. So we're using the trigger word by the time plus the simple present tense, okay? And then that's followed up with the future perfect action, okay? So by the time you arrive home is the simple present tense. I will have driven to work, yeah? Could have said, by the time you arrive home, I will have gone to work, yeah? So that's the future perfect tense. Okay, so I hope that this overview of the tenses has been some use for you. Look, I spend a lot of time making these videos for you, and a like and a subscribe is always appreciated. And as an extra bonus, if you would like a copy of this on PDF, then please like the video. You can subscribe to the channel if you wish, and leave it in the comments below that you would like a copy, and I'll do my level best to ensure or send you a link to download the file for yourself there. So, as I say, I hope you've enjoyed this. We put many, many lessons on this channel for all abilities, all levels in English, from beginners, elementary, intermediate, and advanced. If you like what we're doing, again, put a comment down below. Let us know how we're doing. If you think we're doing a great job, say so. If you think we're not doing a good job, tell us where we're going wrong, and we will try to make them better for you. So, from me, Professor Geoffrey, until next time, saying, stay safe, stay indoors, and until we meet again, bye-bye for now.